that's one of the things that sets us off on this path toward wholeness or healing or whatever word you want to use. Is when we start to stop and sit with all of it and give ourselves permission to be present to just what is. Today, yes, I might be joyful, but I also might be really fucking resentful. I can be both. Both can live inside of me, right? I can be both sad and hopeful. I can be angry and also all kinds of other things. And it's allowing those things to just be without judgment, without interpretation, just letting them be.
Welcome to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband, a modern day love story. This is not about hating your husband. It's not even about having a husband. It's about living a life full of health, happiness, love, success, and joy. We are going to improve your love life by improving your love of life. I am Remy Stern, the founder of Levy by Remy, a dating and relationship coaching business. Join me and my husband, Jonathan, as we help you navigate the world of dating, relationships, and marriage. Because the quality of your relationship determines the quality of your life. So let's make it a good one. It's time to create a life that you love with so much love. So hop right in.
Welcome back to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband. I'm so happy you're here because this episode is so much fun. We have Sarah Schmidt on the podcast. She is the host of the Wholey Schmidt podcast. And we had so much fun on this episode that we did a follow-up for Wholey Schmidt. So definitely go check out that episode. We talk a lot about how to turn your challenges into your greatest opportunities and how to actually put yourself into uncomfortable situations to make you a better person. And we really discuss how life is meant to give you challenges, as hard as that is to stomach, but how those challenges can make you better, can make you bigger in life and greater. And there's nothing better than taking life and conquering it in the best way possible and overcoming things, because that is the way that you live your best life. So hop into this episode if you want to take life and just make it the best thing ever.
Who am I, right? I'm a human being who's had some really challenging things happen in my life, who's just always tried to find a silver lining. I think I was born with an optimism gene, if there is one. And I've carried it through my life. I'm 52 years old. I'm a mom of 4 children. I have 3 adopted kids, and I have 1 biological child. And I love, love, love being a mom. And it's one of the things I probably was made for and do best in the world. But there's lots of other parts of me. I trained as a clinical psychologist. And I think, that was my desire to help others, right? Make sense of my own life and help others do the same. I took this very winding, circuitous path professionally into like consulting and a lot of work in the profit and for-profit and nonprofit sectors. And then when I had my, I finally gave birth to a child when I was 44. I decided to take a break from all of that work and just really focus on parenting because it's a big deal. It's a lot. I had a lot going on with all those kiddos. And in the midst of that break, I started, he went to kindergarten and I started thinking, what do I really want to do? I got to do something because my brain is very busy all the time. And I was feeling like there was some other energetically. I was just feeling like I was supposed to do something else. And I started working with a really great coach to kind of discern that. Took a very interesting path to decide that I wanted to launch a podcast. And that was about a little over a year ago. No, like a year and a half ago that we started planning Wholey Schmidt. And we launched the podcast in April. And we did 17 episodes. And it's truly been one of the most exciting, rewarding, challenging things I've ever done in my life. And I feel like we're just getting started. I actually feel like I'm just getting started as I think about, what are the next, I don't know, let's just call it 50 years have in store for me.
So much fun. And everything you're saying, and because I know about you and I'm so excited for all of the listeners and viewers to learn more about you, but just the fact that you said, like, I wanted to help other people through stuff. And in my opinion, that is such a big thing that probably came out of your challenges, which was you were doing that for like free. Like you were like constantly, and I obviously, if you can imagine, can relate to this and have my own family stuff, and you're running
Mhm.
around and just trying to make everyone happy to keep the waters calm and to make sure dad's happy, mom's happy, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when you're able to change that energy into a way that actually fills you up and you're able to do something you're good at, like for me, that people pleasing tendency,
Mhm.
the kind of pushover tendency was something I was very sad about inside and I was embarrassed by.
Mhm.
Like people used to joke that I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Inside Out.
Yeah, I
Um,
love the movie.
it's the cutest. I'm halfway through the second one. It's so cute.
Yeah, it's so
But in
good.
college, people used to joke that I was joy, and
Yeah.
which is a compliment, of course. But for some
Mhm.
reason, it hurt me. Like I was like, "Oh my god,
Mm.
there is something wrong with me that I'm like always
Yeah.
optimistic, always happy." And through my trials and tribulations, I had to learn this skill, and I think it was innate as well. And then I've been able to transfer that energy into, God willing, helping people through the podcast, through coaching, and it seems like
Mhm.
that's been a transition for you, and
Yeah.
it's so cool. So can you tell us just off of this, what a challenge for you was or something in your childhood that forced you into this helping people,
Mm.
and because now it's something that's serving you. But at one
Yeah.
point maybe it wasn't?
Well, I think there's always a little bit of a fine balance to strike here. I mean, there have been many times, probably there have been times today already that my desire to take care of others hasn't necessarily served me well. I mean, I think that innate desire to help often can get me into trouble, because it can lead into fixing. You know, Helping and fixing are two different things, and not most people don't really want you to fix their problems. I love fixing things. I grew up in a family that really valued the contribution that one makes, not just to the family life, but like to the world. And I was kind of drenched in it. Like, it's our job to help others make the world a better place. So that was kind of the big picture. But in my little nuclear family, I was very much attuned to a mom who I think was overwhelmed by parenting. And I'm pretty empathetic. I think I picked up on that. I wanted to, as a little person, you just want to keep those people that are keeping you alive happy, right? So they can keep keeping you alive.
Mhm.
So I learned all kinds of skills to try to make her and my dad, happy, and I just became like this uber helper. So I loved to be in the kitchen. I loved to be in the laundry room. I loved to be in the garden. I loved to help with my siblings because I got so much positive reinforcement. You're such a good girl. You're so helpful. Look at all the things you can do. Look at the ways in which you contribute. I was just praised, nonstop for those skills. And I mean, I came by it really honestly. I just grew up in that environment. Let's also add to the fact that both of my parents were, my dad was born in 1937. My mom was born in 1942. Big, big families. My mom's one of 14. My dad's one of 8. Very Catholic, very German, very kind of duty focused, family focused. Um, it was really it was quite an experience of, being raised by the two of them. And I love all the things that they taught me, but I've also had to find balance. And I continue to look for balance in a lot of those things because I think they did the best they could with what they knew, about parenting. But quite honestly, I mean, they gave me way too much responsibility at a very young age, put me in charge of all kinds of things I never should have been in charge of, and allowed me to make a lot of assumptions about my own ability to solve other people's problems. So I've spent a lot of my life kind of unlearning that, putting it in an appropriate place, using it in appropriate ways, you
Yes,
know.
and not only did you unlearn it for yourself, which by the way is the best thing that someone could do as a
Yeah.
parent, and thank God I've got my little girl, and I think about it all the
Oh,
time. I'm like, would I want what I experienced to be put on her? Would I want the way that I'm feeling for her to ever feel that way? Like, let me
mhm.
unlearn, but first I have to unlearn it myself. Like,
Yeah.
I can't just talk the talk. I better walk the walk. So you did that, and then you go and you're helping other people. I feel like it's interesting, and I'm curious in your opinion because so many people experience this, and they feel that maybe generational traumas, for lack of a better word, and
Mhm.
they're maybe upset with their parents, and they carry this weight on them. Like, you seem like you're at such a great place with maybe accepting them, accepting how
Mhm.
this impacted your life. Like, how would you say to other people who are really feeling this pressure and are in the thick of it? You know, they're like upset, it's affecting their relationships, their life, how to overcome that and change the energy for themselves?
Mm. I think it's well, first of all, it's so powerful what you just shared, and it made me think while you were talking about joy in the movie Inside Out. And it made me think about all the other characters that also were living in you at the same time. And one of the things I like to do and I practice for myself and I work with other people around is using internal family systems and different kinds of tools to help us understand all the parts of ourselves, and appreciate all of them. So Joy was one part of you and she was really working hard, right? To keep the others at bay, sadness, anger, frustration, all the other things you were feeling at the same time. But joy was a socially acceptable thing for you to experience and display, right? Because you got a lot of praise for it, right? You were rewarded for being joyful. And you learned that, like, if I just keep this going, right, I don't have to feel all the other things, but I'll keep getting all this reinforcement and I can think that I'm holding it together,
Mhm.
and it's a this is a pattern that, like, we all get into in some way, shape, or form in our lives. And at some point it stops serving us. So what you noticed was this, like, people would compare you to joy and you'd be like, you didn't like it. Well, it's because no one was seeing all the other parts of you that were also equally real and alive in you, right? And what you wanted to do, I'm assuming, is be seen for the multitude of just the variety of emotions that you are experiencing, seen for your whole entire self, right? And I think that's one of the things that sets us off on this path, toward wholeness or healing or whatever word you want to use. It's when we start to stop and sit with all of it and give ourselves permission to be present to just what is. So, today, yes, I might be joyful, but I also might be really fucking resentful
Mhm.
of somebody because something happened. And I can be
Mhm.
both, right? I can be both. Both can live inside of me, right? I can be both sad and hopeful, right? I can be angry and also all kinds of other things. And it's allowing those things to just be without judgment, without interpretation, just letting them be.
Well, the
I mean,
irony as well. The irony as well in the movie is that sadness is the one who saves the day, which you would say probably joy and
yeah,
sadness are kind of the opposites of each other in that one, and they're
yeah,
like, "Sadness, no, like, don't touch it, you're not allowed here." And then
yeah,
sadness is the one that
yeah.
outcry, the letting out the emotions is the one who saved
Mhm.
the day.
Yeah. It is only when we really truly start to really experience and be with our most difficult emotions that we can integrate anything in our lives, right? I mean, people will go to great lengths to avoid feeling sad. Look at all the ways in which we distract ourselves in our society,
Yeah.
And I mean, because it's been deemed like not okay, just not okay, right? And I think one of the things I really have tried to do for myself, I do as a parent, I do for others, is just try to live in a way that communicates that I am here for all of it, that I can handle your big feelings. They are okay with me. They are not threatening to me. You can be as angry, as sad, as frustrated, as joyful, as all of it. I'm cool with it.
Such a blessing to the
Doesn't
people in your
doesn't
life.
threaten me. Yeah, I
It's
mean,
such a
I think
blessing.
it's been a I and the only reason I know to do this is because I've had the experience of others being present for me and helping me feel safe with my own big
It's
feelings.
so fascinating because I'll compare it to going to the gym. And there's obviously a pain at the gym that isn't helpful, that's actually hurting you. But the
Yeah.
majority of the shaking and the sweating and the uncomfortability and the pain is actually making you stronger and making you better. And people shy away from that in their emotional state of those
Mhm.
experiences that are uncomfortable, that make them shaky and sweaty per se, like in a different way.
Yeah.
They shy away from those, but if they actually were to lean into them, which I feel like this is your biggest message, if you're to lean into it, you're going to get stronger, and this is actually going to serve you, not hurt you.
Yeah.
And yes, tell me.
No, I mean, what you're saying is like so resonating with some things that I've been really reflecting on over the last few months. And I've come to see that I have this like kind of stress kit, this toolkit that I've assembled for myself that helps me be present in my life. And one of them is the gym. I
Mhm.
go 5, 6 times a week to the gym and
Mhm.
I lift heavy shit. Now, I do it because it's good for my body and I want to build muscle and I want to, muscle, I believe muscle is the organ of longevity and I want to be able to lift my grandkids and I don't want to slip on the ice in the middle of the winter and all that good stuff. But when people ask me like, "What are you training for?" I'll just say life. Because if I go to the gym in the morning and I work hard and I push myself and I experience that discomfort for 45 minutes, doesn't need to be much more, I reinforce for myself the fact that I can do hard things later in the day. And when the hard thing inevitably shows up, I can reflect on how I handled it in the morning and I'm good to go.
Mhm.
I feel a level of confidence like I can do it. I can do it. This morning was really funny. I mean, I kind of thought it was upper body day, but I got there and my trainer was like, legs. I'm like, oh God. And then I noticed my mental, oh, I didn't want to do legs. It's harder, right? It's just harder. I was like, wait, no, I am going to enter into this workout with joy because I can do it. I'm just going to feel grateful for the fact that I'm here and I can do it. I'm not injured. I'm upright. I'm ready to go. And I had an amazing workout. And I just think that subtle little mental shift, showing up, doing it whether you really want to or not, but just doing it because it's the right thing to do, being present while you're doing it. I mean, these are all like really simple things, but they're so hard.
Mhm.
They're so hard.
You are right, and that's why I love the gym analogy, and same as with you, I working out is my husband makes a joke that, like, if I don't have my workout in by, like, 10 AM, you'll literally see, like, this demon crawling on the walls, and, like,
Uh-huh.
you don't
Yeah.
want that, like, we have it with my
Yeah.
daughter that no matter what, Remy gets outside and gets her workout in, and it
My kids are the
really
same way. They will be like, "Did you work out today?" And I'll be like, "I did." "Oh no, what's going on?"
yeah, even after them, it's a lot, and sitting through that pain and being present with it, like, not trying and that's what the whole joy versus sadness and all of that was hard for me, and I think what triggered me when they said it, I was like, "Wait, but hello, like, where is the space for me to be sad?" Like, I was a 10-year-old girl who saw that there was, like, my home, everything that was my foundation, my basis is crumbling, and I didn't let myself crumble. I just tried to put the pieces back together. Like, where is this space for me to feel that? And I was upset about it. And then I was like, oh my God. And then I'm overcompensating and I'm in this annoying piece of joy. Like, that's frustrating. But I find it fascinating because when you're in the pain, right? It's almost like when you go to the gym, it's like the best feeling is when it's over. And you can look back and be like, wow, I did that. Good for me. Now I'm stronger. Now tomorrow, maybe I can lift heavier weights. Like it's much easier to look back and see that the dots connected. It's a Steve Jobs quote that I love. That's like,
Mhm.
you can look back and see the dots connected, but it's very hard to look forward and trust that they're connecting. So
Yeah.
when someone is in that moment, like it's not like they're like, "Oh, my parents' divorce made me do this whole search on marriage and now I'm going to have an amazing marriage. So like thank you for my parents' divorce." It's I'm feeling the pain right now and there's such a v- you know array of pains that people can feel, but what would you say is a tool to sit in the pain? And this is now, not just the gym pain, but really that emotional, spiritual, painful moment.
I try to practice. I mean, I really do try to practice the experiencing discomfort as often as I can. So, I mean, that probably sounds really weird because as humans, I think we're conditioned to avoid discomfort. But, I want to be hungry before I eat something. I want to actually feel hunger. Okay. I want to, like, in the morning, at the end of my shower, as I'm getting ready to rinse the conditioner out of my hair, I turn the water as cold as it freaking can get. And I stand there under the freezing cold water for, maybe 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. And I just practice breathing and not panicking, right? I just practice like deep breaths. And now I can get the water pretty cold in the shower. It's not the same as a plunge. And I do that sometimes too, but this is just easy, because I'm already, but I do it every single morning without fail. Um, you know, I I want to experience being cold. I want to experience being hot and sweaty. I want to get my hands dirty in the garden or somewhere, to the point where you're like, God, I can't wait to, clean up. I mean, I think the world we live in is full of so many conveniences that can help us avoid discomfort. And when we avoid too much of it, it can take us down a very slippery slope to assume that we never have to be uncomfortable. And then how will we take risks, right? If I don't know I can handle discomfort, I may never take a risk. I may not take the risk of launching my podcast and then I don't get to meet you, right? I might not take the risk of, traveling somewhere to see something beautiful because it just might be like kind of inconvenient or whatever. There's a lot of, but I think that piece of like learning to tolerate discomfort, and part of that discomfort is learning to tolerate uncertainty, like accepting that I don't know shit.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know how I'm going to manage something, but trusting that the universe is going to take care of me and present me with the things I need to learn, the things I need to learn, even if they're not convenient.
Mm-hmm. It's
So I
so
think I
good.
think there's that piece around like, how can we just learn to be with all the unknowns, be with all the not knowing? I really am a big fan of Peter Crone. He calls himself the mind architect, and he really is that. And one of the things he challenges is to just be with the I don't fucking know. I add the fucking part myself,
Way to
but
go, girl.
the I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I look back on my life and I think about where I started and where I am. The path I've taken has been so crazy circuitous, so many wonderful, challenging, difficult, glorious things, but it's all been a big surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So why would I expect that I would know what's going to happen in the next month or 2 or 10 years, And I think, we just clamor for certainty.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And the analogy of wanting to be hungry to fill yourself up, like even just looking at that, I feel like people hate being hungry and they're just like
Yeah.
constantly trying to like eat things throughout the day. And we have this excess of food. You can go to any
Yeah.
grocery store, thank God, and you can get something for $1 to eat. Like
Mhm.
there's such an excess of food. And when I say that, I really do mean comfort. You can be in the comfort
Yeah.
of your home and order Amazon, Instacart, Postmates, and never have to like see someone or
Yeah.
be. And it's actually, I live in New York City and I get very uncomfortable here. Like it's been such a learning journey to have to deal with human beings the way you do here,
Yeah.
and with that discomfort, and it's like a mirror in front of your face that you have to handle it. And if you're having an anxious day and someone bumps into you in the street and the horn is honking, and you have to get somewhere, and like it's just way different than being in the comfort of your car where I grew up in LA. But this feeling of a lack, and it'll come up,
Mhm.
I work with a lot of women who are dating and they feel this lack of external love, right? And of course, they have to find that love from within and grow it. And when you become love, you receive love, but you experience that lack. And in my journey of finding my husband, the that lack feeling was the
Mhm.
best thing that has ever happened to me, because then when I met him, it filled it. Of course, I filled it myself before, but it did fill
Yeah.
it. And how much more could I appreciate it?
Mhm.
It's also like going to like the best pasta dinner in the world, but if you just ate a huge muffin before, like how much are you going to enjoy that
Yeah.
pasta? Like you
Yeah.
want that hunger, and
Mhm.
we don't give it to ourselves enough. And I love the cold shower. I'm like so scared of it, and I so should do it. I really should. And I my
Well, here's the funny thing. I really wanted to buy a cold plunge, but I wasn't taking a cold shower. And I'm like, why am I going to spend an insane amount of money on a cold plunge if I can't even take a cold shower. So I forced myself to do the cold shower for 6 months. So
How far in are
literally
we?
last week I bought the cold plunge.
Wow, congratulations. That's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Now I had like been teetering with cold because we live on Lake Michigan and you can plunge there. And I have, I mean, it's not like that was, but I had to do it every day for 6 months in order to justify the purchase. And I mean, I can't wait for it to come now. I'm super excited. But yeah, I mean, I think you're so spot on about, like this is a big deal.
Yeah. No, it is
You know?
to sit in the uncomfortable. And the interesting thing is that I also, at the same time as being this joy person, was also very much so like, yeah, but like you have to sit and talk about your emotions and sit in the
Mhm.
sadness and sit in the pain. But there is a flip side. So now I'm gonna I'm gonna not contradict what you're saying, but
Yeah.
there
Go.
is a step two. Let's put it this way. I
Mhm.
believe in acceptance of what is. Not even just
Yeah.
acceptance, but fall in love with it. And I think that comes
Mhm.
up a lot for family stuff because it can be painful to like accept your family the way they are. But the second step, my husband has taught me a lot, which is, but wait, it's not as dark as it seems. Like it's not as
Mm.
bad as it seems. Now let's
Yeah.
go look at the positives. Now let's go.
Yeah.
And if there's something you can change, he's either change your
Yeah.
perspective or change the situation. If you can't change the situation, you better freaking change your perspective. And of course, sit through it, but find that silver lining.
Mhm.
And you are so good at it.
I'm
And
really good at it.
you are really good. And I'm curious because we're looking backwards and we're saying like all of these things brought you to actually be good at it now.
Mhm.
In your own experience in your life, could you give people just because like people don't believe it unless they actually hear it happening, like an experience in your life that was uncomfortable that you actually then saw light come from it, like
Yeah.
darkness turned into light
Mhm.
for lack of a better way to think of it. Is there like one scenario in your life that really showed that?
I mean, it's really hard for me to choose because I can think of a lot of them, but let me just talk quickly about, this is one of the very early episodes of the podcast. I think maybe like the third one. And I talk about, the experience of being diagnosed with cancer when I was 20. So I was a junior in college. I was at Northwestern University, which for anybody who, knows it's a decent school. I was just chugging along. Junior year is your best year, right? You hit your stride, you've got your major, you're taking your like major classes, you have relationships with faculty, your friendships are feeling solid, you know your way around. I was an RA, a resident assistant. So I've had a leadership kind of position. I was feeling really good about that. The helper in me was thrilled to be an RA. And I was really sick that whole fall. I got mono and then I had pneumonia. And I had these lymph nodes that were getting bigger and bigger right here in my neck. I mean, if you got really close, you could actually still see the scar where they cut them out. And of course, I kept going to the student health center and they were like, do you have mono? Are you pregnant? I mean, those are the two options in 1992 when you're at the student health center. You either have mono or you're pregnant. Neither one was true. Well, actually, I did have mono, but it wasn't resolving. And those lymph nodes were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Finally, a surgeon recognized something that was needed to be biopsied. So I'm going home for the holiday break. It's December 16th, 1992. And they open me up. They take out 2 golf ball sized lymph nodes. I mean, if you saw pictures of me from that time, I mean, my collarbones are pretty. It was just, I mean, it was like this, it was really pretty obvious. 5 o'clock that night, I got the call. I had Hodgkin's disease. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so my whole holiday break was spent figuring out where it was and how we were going to treat it. And I went back to school actually early January. I chose to continue my treatment in Chicago. I didn't want to leave school. A lot of that was really related to the fact that I really was feeling a strong energy from my parents that they just could not deal with me being sick. There's a big backstory to that. You can listen to the podcast because I talk a lot about it. And then I talk with my mom about it. My mom and I do an episode around this. But, I went back to school and I actually handled cancer treatment pretty much alone. I went every day for radiation and all the things that I needed to do. It was miserable. I mean, I was really sick. It was really horrible. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die for a really long time, even after they told me I was, cured. Because at 20, it's very hard for your brain, I think, to just imagine these kinds of big life, scary issues, right? Think about it. In the frontal cortex, the hypothetical reasoning capability isn't even developed till you're in your like mid 20s. So here I am as a 20-year-old dealing with this. But as I look back on it and I think about the person it shaped me to be, I have such a deep appreciation for suffering. I have a really deep appreciation for what it means to truly be alone. I know what it feels like to be truly alone in one of the darkest moments you could imagine. I'm thinking I'm dying and I am alone in a dorm room on a college campus surrounded by college students.
Did you share this with your friends at college? Like, were you able?
Very, very little. Very little. There were a few people that knew. I think because my family wasn't able to talk with me about what was happening, I didn't know how to talk with really anyone. I definitely didn't share with anyone how scared I was, and how much I was really suffering. I was very sick, and I kept that from all but maybe one person. You know, if you haven't been raised in an environment where it's okay to talk about the hard things, you don't know how to talk about the hard things when the hard things happen.
Yep.
And so I didn't have that. Wasn't in my toolkit then. Was push through, keep going, you'll be fine, don't make a big deal out of it, don't burden anybody else with your problems, you're not dead, so you must be fine, like very, very, like, just keep going kind of stuff. And but now I think about the way I love this body. I mean, that's a hard thing to say. I mean, to come to a place where I really love this body. And when I see the scars on it, I have this one here, I've got one here, I've got 11 inches down the middle of me that actually is tattooed.
Wow.
Because I got sick of looking at the scars, so I had it tattooed with a tree of life. All the things that it reminds me that I can do hard things, that I am, resilient, that I'm a survivor. It helps me connect with other people, I think, in those moments. I think it gives me a lot of empathy and compassion. It helps me fuel my passion for taking care of myself, right? I don't need a lot of reasons to take good care of me because I know what it's like to be that sick. So, I mean, I think about the way I've been able to support the people I love most when they've been ill. So, I mean, I have an adopted kid who has sickle cell disease and his kidneys are failing. My son Will. He's 19. We adopted him when he was an itty bitty baby, 13 days old. And then we found out he had sickle cell disease. And and then 5 years ago, we learned his kidneys are failing. He's got a lot of health challenges. I am really good at navigating health challenges. I mean, this is my jam, right? I feel like that was almost practice for me to be his mom. My mom, 3 years ago, actually 3 years ago, wait, is it today? 3 years ago today, she had a massive heart
I
attack.
have the chills all over.
And we had to airlift her from a hospital in Wisconsin, and we brought her back to the hospital close to my house where I went through cancer treatment for a major surgery. She didn't just have a heart attack. She ruptured the septum wall between the left and the right ventricle in her heart. And she was on a heart pump for 3.5 weeks and had to have this very, very life-threatening surgery. And I got to take care of her and help her, find health again. It was the most amazing experience because she didn't do that for me. She couldn't. But I got to do it for her in the same hospital where I was treated for cancer and incidentally birthed a baby. All of these things, I could equally, Remy, be really pissed off still because of the things that challenge me related to my cancer diagnosis. And I could give you a long list of things that I deal with related to that, because there are ramifications to these things. But those aren't the first things I think of. because I'm choosing not to think about them. I mean, I'm not choosing to ignore them. They exist, but I'm not letting them dictate the future. I'm creating the future that I want in my life, and it is one of well-being for as long as I possibly can have it. And when I can't have it anymore, I will embrace that too. Because I don't want to miss out, you know?
That
I mean,
is so
I don't
magical.
want to miss out on what I'm supposed to do while I'm here.
Yeah. And it's such a shame that something as simple but powerful as our health, most people don't appreciate it until God forbid times a million, but God forbid it's gone in a sense,
Yeah.
like until something happens to them, God forbid. And the miracle of health, I like have chills all over just thinking about this. Like, what is happening in our bodies right now in order to keep these things running? Even just thinking about the kidneys and flushing out the
No.
toxins and the fact if you stop and think that your blood is pumping through your body, it's like trips me out a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like how is
It's amazing.
and we don't have to think about it. It just automatically does this. And I'm a faith-based person where I do believe in something greater and how magical it could create this being. And not only do we not appreciate our health, but we're not very nice to our bodies. We speak
Yeah.
really poorly to our bodies. If you're
Yeah.
lucky enough to be someone who cares about health and eating properly and moving properly and that, like amazing. But even so, I hear too often people speaking poorly to themselves. And
Yeah.
if whoever listening, please take one thing away from today, like try your hardest at least once a day. Try, and I'm not perfect at this, so I'm talking to myself too, but appreciate your health. Say thank you for waking up that day and having it
Mhm.
because you don't want to wait till God forbid it's gone to appreciate it.
Yeah. I think
And
it's so hard for women, don't you?
it's such a bummer.
I think it's so hard for women.
Such a
We
shame.
are we are enculturated, we're taught from a very young age to step outside of ourselves and critique our physical self. And it is like how we look is what matters most.
And
And
listen, it
it,
does matter because if you look good, you feel good. And if you're taking care of your body, you feel freaking good. So, in my opinion, like if someone's in a rut, the first thing I'm going to ask them is, are you moving your body? Which
Mhm.
coincides with looking and feeling good. And by no means should we sit and harp on the looking portion,
Yeah.
but it matters. It's just to the point that where we're doing it in such a destructive way.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
doing it in a way that we're never gonna be good enough. We lose those
Mhm.
5 pounds, guess what? You're gonna wanna lose those next 5 pounds, and you're gonna like, it's such a shame, and this body is
Yeah.
miraculous.
I've been very skinny and very miserable, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Like, I mean, and I think, but I think in particular, women have this added layer to the challenge of learning how to step back inside ourselves, learning how to really become embodied and 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 really starting to look at the way in which we talk about ourselves and others, right? Like what is the first, oh my God, you look great. You
Mhm.
look amazing.
Mhm.
Like this constant reinforcement of the physicality. One thing I chat, like when I want to compliment someone, I want to say something like, God, you are so kind. You just have the biggest heart. When I saw you today, I just felt so warm. I felt so seen. I felt so loved. Really, really trying myself to not fall into the trap of, you look great, because I remember being at this was like the worst days of being sick in the
Mhm.
middle of radiation treatment, which I had a very hard time. I couldn't eat. I had all the salivary glands in my mouth shut down. So I literally could not eat. I got very, very skinny. And it would be a regular occurrence that people would say to me, God, you look amazing. What did you do?
I've heard it before
I mean,
too, where
I was,
someone
oh,
has cancer and someone's like, "They look great," and I'm like, "That is so backwards," and actually, eating disorders
yeah.
is part of my story, unfortunately.
Oh,
Not for me, thank God.
oh, okay.
Thank God it wasn't for me. Somehow I stayed clear of that. I didn't even realize there's a bit of naivete in this that like
Mhm,
I didn't realize women felt this way honestly till later in life. And
mhm.
I had my big aha, which I wish I didn't, of like, oh wait, we're supposed to care about our bodies and like, ugh,
Oh,
such a bummer. But it's this is the vessel you're living in. And if you don't love it and appreciate it and be embodied in it, then you're missing out on quite a lot. And I'm curious, are there other practices that you do for embodiment that make you feel like here and now in it?
Yeah. I mean, I try to do something every morning. I have a little morning meeting and I have a little meeting with all my parts. I kind of check in. I check in with those parts of myself that I was sort of talking about earlier, not just the emotions, but if you look at internal family systems, there's sort of a methodology around this. The controller parts of me, the hypervigilant parts of me, the fearful parts of me, all of these things that really were probably formed at a very, very young age and highly adaptive. And they still live inside of me. This is inner child work, right? And I try to sit in the morning in a very quiet way and invite my parts to tell me what they need. I also try to identify where they're living in me physically. So I'm very gut focused. So my gut is a really powerful center of feeling and responsiveness. But for a very long time, I never wanted to feel what I was feeling in my gut. So I just did a really good job of distracting myself. And one of the best ways to shut down your gut instincts is to eat. Okay. Because as soon as you put food in your mouth, what you were feeling in your gut, you will no longer feel. So I became a very emotional eater. I mean, I did this when I was very little too. I mean, when I felt scared, when I felt unsafe, I felt lonely. I felt a lot of loneliness as a little kid. My mom was really good at like, oh, you're sad, or here's a treat, or your dad and I are going to be gone tonight, but I got you, this junk food for you to enjoy while I'm away. Like substitute food for love. All those messages, I took them very seriously. I mean, I think what I do now is I sit with those parts and those feelings and I invite them to speak and I try to experience them where they're living in me. And I ask them what they need. I offer them reassurance. I do this a lot with the controlling part of me. I really have a hard time with the unknown, uncertainty. I'm very much working on accepting that, the I don't know. And it's a daily practice. And I often have to talk to that controller part and remind her, hey, it's okay. It's okay today. Like, I've got this. Like, I'm all grown up and we can handle uncertainty today. We're going to be fine. Might feel scary. We can handle scary. And I talk to myself that way. And
Yeah.
it's a really kind of a cool, I mean, it's a very meditative practice for me. And sometimes it's accompanied by actual, like, true on meditation. But it is that ritual of staying connected.
So nice because also it's known that like we are the person that we speak to most in our lives. And if you tune in and pay attention to what we're saying to ourselves, we would never speak to someone we love the
Yeah.
way we speak to
No.
ourselves. Like we'd never be like, "Oh, you look horrible in those jeans. Take those off." Or like
Yeah.
you are such a loser and
Yeah.
like have no friends. But if you can consciously shift the
Yeah.
way you speak to yourself, not only about yourself and loving yourself, but about your life and saying like these hardships that I'm going through, like your cancer, I'm not angry about it. Like I'm not sitting here and fighting it
Right.
because the more you fight with reality, the more uncomfortable it is for
Right.
you. Reality is always going to win because reality is
Because reality
reality.
is reality.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can change the way you speak about yourself and you consciously do that in the morning, and what an incredible practice, and change the way you speak about your life and something, and finding the silver lining in the challenging things. I think a pretty easy way, like besides which is hard work and I do with a lot of my clients of, taking what you're going through and seeing the benefit of it, not just looking backwards, because it's important to do that looking backwards, but also when you're in the moment. But the next step that I think is so fabulous and changes everything is going and helping someone else through it. Like you have
Mhm.
now overcome something. You had to overcome
Yeah.
cancer, which was scary and painful and all of the things. And now you're able to help other people through it. What a blessing. And that to me is almost the first and most powerful place to bring light into
Yeah.
darkness. So incredible that you're doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's always so important to step outside ourselves and recognize that, there's somebody else suffering too, and who probably is suffering even more than we are. And finding ourselves connected to that suffering in the world in a way where we feel like we can do something, even one small thing. I think that's another piece in my like toolkit, if you will. It's staying connected to the ways in which I can be useful and effective and helpful. And it can be tiny little things. My kids and I on a regular basis make lunches that we deliver to the drop in center of a homeless shelter that I'm very connected to. Very simple thing. We go buy all the stuff, we assemble 50 lunches, we drop them off, and that day we know 50 people will get a healthy lunch. It's a little thing that I can do, but what I'm reminding myself and my children is that we we can do hard things. We can be connected to people in their hard thing. We can be effective in the world, right? Every little thing matters. Putting good energy into the world, just a good thing to do, right? And we're going to make that our life's work.
I think that is everything. Because if we're not here to help and make the world a better place, I love this concept, but the word, my faith is rooted in Judaism, and
Mhm.
the word for give in Hebrew when you're giving to someone is
Yeah.
natan. It's Natan, and
Uh-huh.
it's spelled forwards the same way it's spelled backwards. It's
Oh
like one of
yeah.
my favorite things.
I
And
like
and
that.
the idea is that if you're ever in a rut or like feel like, oh, well, poor me, this is happening in my life, go give to somebody who
Mhm.
needs. And when you give, you'll receive. Not that that should be the motivating factor, but again, what else are we doing here for not helping
Yeah.
people and
Yeah.
contributing? And last thing on this, I did my last podcast episode was my grandpa just passed away. He was
I
104.
listened to this
Yeah,
one.
and that was
I
just
loved
thank
it.
you. Thank you. That means a lot to me because it was like a rare one for me. It was different than all of
It
the others.
was. It was a departure and it was so
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you. And that was his biggest thing. So if anything, if I can please God let his memory live on, it's again, I said walk away with please loving your body today, but also please walk away everybody and go do something
Yeah.
kind for someone else because kindness goes a long, long, long
Yeah.
way and
Yeah.
changes the world. Like one person
Yeah.
can make a huge ripple effect with kindness. So those are two things. I
It's
want to
gorgeous.
ask you just I always like to ask people when you're wiser and you've gained all of this knowledge, you can look back and
Mhm.
give your younger self a piece of advice. Like,
Yeah.
is there one piece of advice you would give your younger self, someone else who might be going through similar things? Like, what is
Yeah.
that piece of advice you'd give?
Mm. I don't know if I can narrow it down to one, but I could say
You
maybe
go,
a couple
girl. Do it
things.
all. Or most of them.
I would say slow down. You have time. You don't have to do it all right away. You don't have to achieve it all. You don't have to solve all the big questions of who am I and what am I going to do and who am I going to do it with and where am I going to live and all those things. You do not have to resolve all of those things in your 20s. The world is telling you that you do, but you don't. So slow down. I would say have more fun. You know, don't take yourself so seriously. Find ways to just be joyful, right? And just share that joy. The world is a hard, heavy place. Keeping joy in the center of who we are and what we do, so critical, I think. I'd say surround yourself with people who love to talk about ideas, not other people. You know, really, I think that's the key to building just meaningful friendships is they're built around a common passion around that are value based. It's easy to get lost in conversation that's, directed at others. It's a cop out. Don't let yourself fall into the trap. Um, I'd say take care of your body. It's really, really easy in your 20s to build muscle, you know, to be fit, to be strong. Do it. Don't wait? It gets harder as you get older. And while you're at it, guess what? Alcohol isn't your friend. It's not helping you at all. Okay. It's probably making you more depressed, more anxious, probably costing you a lot of money. find fun in other ways, learn to be comfortable in your own skin so that you don't need to step out of it, right? You don't need the distraction. I mean, I could just keep going, Remy, because there's lots of things I wish I had known in my 20s.
These are so unbelievably good. I like could go on and on about it. Same with you, like each and every one. I love, we talked about like joy being potentially destructive at the beginning, just being like if you live
Yeah.
in joy all the time. But there's a different type of
Yeah.
joy that is, I think, maybe based out of gratitude and
Mhm.
lightheartedness, like that
Yeah.
lighthearted. It's not as deep and dark sometimes as you
Yeah.
think it is. Like
Yeah.
it is lighter, it is happier. Love your body, love your life. It's such a
Yeah.
blessing. Everything you're saying, I mean, the people around you are, you want to look at who you are, like look at the people around. Everything. I want to just capture it and never
I
let
think
it.
you did.
I
We
did
recorded
exactly.
it.
Well, if that's what this
You
is,
did
yes,
it.
exactly. I love it all. Thank you so much. Can
Oh,
you
thank
tell
you,
people
Remy.
where to find you because you are very
Oh, you're so
brilliant and
sweet. So you can watch our podcast on YouTube, Wholey Schmidt. It's WHOLEYSCHMIDT. I'm really proud of the video portion of it, and we filmed it and took a lot of great care in really trying to tell the story visually as well as with just the words. So you can also listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those good places. You can find me on my website, wholeyschmidt.com. One thing we're really excited about for season 2 is we're going to be featuring the Wholey Schmidt moments of many, many guests, and we're inviting people to submit their moments. So we're really excited to get started on season 2. And so that's where people can find me.
you are brilliant.
Oh, and Instagram also, that whole thing.
Wholey Schmidt, same
Wholey
thing.
Schmidt, yes.
Love it. Go find her. She's incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. You are
Well,
amazing.
Remy, it takes one to know one. This has been really fun. And
You're
I
awesome.
look forward to seeing you in New York.
Please come. She's coming live because you're right. There's something different when it's live. So everyone look
Yeah.
out for that episode. And you're
Okay.
the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you for listening to the series. If you like our podcast, please show us some love. Your love helps us grow and allows us to give you more of what you want. So like us, follow, review, subscribe, all of the good things. Share it with a friend, share it on your social media. It helps more than you know. We release a new episode every single Monday, so stay tuned. We love you.